Hey y'all! Yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while. It's been quite a while since I did a book review, reading, thing, whatever. Anyway, so I decided to tell y'all why. The main reason is because I have been planning a trip with my good friend Kit Kinetic. Go to one of the corners and you will find a link to the playlist about that. And it's amazing how much effort one of those trips takes to plan. Also because I couldn't decide on what book series to do, or book in general. I don't like to do a review of a book series I haven't read from beginning to end, because there are some series that start off really good and really strong and I really like, and then towards the end they get so predictable that it's kind of silly. So it's like, why even bother with it? So I decided that a lot of the book series that I haven't completed yet have to do with timing, or timeline, if you will. By timeline, I mean like how far each book comes before or after the other. I've compiled a list of books I own, which I have thought about doing reviews for, but I haven't for reasons. And ones that do this well, and ones that don't do it well, or ones that I'm unsure about. Spoilers on the Christina, Dodd, Lara, Adrian, Derek, Landy, Tamora, Pierce, and Mccaffrey, Terry Pratchett, kind of, J.R. Ward. Spoilers! Let's start off with Lara, Adrian. Lara, Adrian? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She writes The Midnight Breed. I started reading those when I was, just knee-high to a grasshopper, which I don't recommend. I was probably 11, 12 when I first read the first one, and I loved them. I got all caught up, and I read them as they came out, and then Edge of Dawn happened. But why did that upset me? Edge of Dawn happened, and I haven't read it since. Well, the book series, a brief overview, is about alien vampires. Yes, that sounds weird, but yes, alien vampires. It's pretty cool, actually. And the entire first part of the series takes place in maybe a 2-year time period. It's these people, or these alien vampires, they go to war against these other alien vampires, and shit happens, right? It's really good, and like I said, there's like 10 books or so, counting like short stories, that all take place in like this 2-year period. Then Edge of Dawn happens, and it takes place like 20 years later. Like, what the hell? 20 years after the first part of the series? Sure, the main character, whose name I forget, I think it's like Maya or Maria or something. Sure, she's in the first part of the series as like an 8-year-old girl, but now she's like 25 or so and a badass. Whereas before, she was like this timid little like 8-year-old. And it's like, what caused her to be a badass? What happened? And the entire previous book to Edge of Dawn happens very rapidly. That book ends just abruptly. So it's like every little detail is planned out and shown, and then smack. Let's skip all of this. Sure, like series, a major leap forward or back in time is okay for a series. Not saying it's bad, but like the way that happened was just weird. Like I said, they're alien vampires. They live in our world and nobody knows about them. And then one day, the bad alien vampires, they release all the sick and insane alien vampires loose on the world. So you have like these bloodlusting vampires just running rampant in the streets eating people. And, this is like in the early 2000s, no, 90s maybe? I can't remember. But, somewhere in there. I think probably closer to the 90s. And they're running around and they're killing people, and then we have the good alien vampires running around killing the ones who's eating people, and then it jumps forward a couple of months. Okay, so that happens, and it ends with this, bloodfest, sort of, chaos in the streets, and then it jumps forward in time about 2 months, and it has the leader of the good alien vampires going and speaking in front of Congress or something, announcing that their species does exist. And then it ends. It doesn't have a speech, it doesn't have any ramifications of what happened afterwards, it just stops. Then it jumps forward 20 years, where alien vampires are now part of society. And humans fight alongside them, and suddenly everybody has children. And it's like, really? So what happened? What happened to the Lara Adrian version of Charlie Harris's How Vampires End Up Working in Society? What happened to everything else? How many lies did Luke and Thorne had to spew during that meeting? And in the first book, he states, I am not a spokesperson for my species, and suddenly he's the leader. He becomes literally the spokesman. So, it's like that entire time jump was just weird, and made me completely lose interest. If it's done right, it's good. Like, for instance, Tamora Pierce and Tortall, she does it well. The first book, like the Song of the Lioness, or whatever it's called, the first group of books with Alana and them, those take place over, I don't know, each book something like 3 years or something, I don't know. So, 9 years, 10 years, and then it jumps forward a few years, and then there's the girl who can talk to animals, and she has 4 books, and then it jumps forward a few more years, and then you go to that one girl who's, trains to be a knight, and then you jump forward a bunch more years, and you have Alana's daughter, and then you jump back in time 200 years, and you have this girl who's a cop. But those things are done well. Firstly, because the books move forward in time much more rapidly than, one book being 3 days. So you have a group of books all being within, 2 years of each other, compared to 4 books being covering a space of, 10 years. So a time jump is much more natural. And plus, what happens in the time jumps are very natural. Alana, she does her thing. I honestly wasn't very interested in her thing, but she does her thing. Can't even remember what the point was, but except that girls can now be knights. So she does her thing. Then we jump forward, and then Dane can talk to animals. And during Dane's story, creatures from another dimension come into this one. So that's what her book is all about. It's about centaurs and dragons returning to this world. Well, the world of Tortall, not, the actual real world. And that's her story. And then jump forward a few more years, and you have Kel, I think her name is. And she's training to be a knight, which is very similar to Alana's group of books, but she has to also train on how to fight these mystical creatures. Then we have Alana's daughter, which books I haven't read, and we have the puppy books, the doggy books, the Provost Guard book. Now, Becca Cooper, she solves murders and stuff 200 years before, which means that she's completely unrelated to the others except for being some guy's great-great-great-great-grandmother or something, or great-grandmother, or, Yeah, so she doesn't even make an appearance, and I don't even think she's mentioned in the entire series. So, that's fine. It's the same world, but completely different, and they're interconnected. Now imagine if there was Alana's books, and it skipped directly to Kel without doing Dane. So suddenly we have this girl becoming a knight, using magic in a world where there's no unicorns or centaurs or giants or anything like that. Then, completely skipping Dane's story and what happened there, and suddenly there's dragons and griffins in this world where previously there was none. How did that come about? That is a bad time jump. If you do something and then you don't explain this in-between chunk. And that really upset me with the Midnight Breed. And my experience with the Midnight Breed has seriously tampered the book series that I have yet to finish. Like, for instance, the J.R. Ward books, the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I love the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I started reading it. It was amazing. And then, about the time I got to Blaylock and Quinn's book, whichever one that is, she came out with Brotherhood Legacy, which is about their children or something. And it's like, okay, does this mean something? Is this going to be a Lara Adrian jump where something exciting happens and then it just cuts off and you skip ahead? Is it? And then I completely lost interest because what if it is? And then there's the Christina Dodd books, Darkness Chosen and The Chosen Ones. They are two separate series, yes. But once again, they are a series that does the time jump well. At least as far as I can tell. I haven't actually read The Chosen Ones yet. I did read part of the first book of The Chosen Ones, and then I kind of lost the book for a while. So I do know a little bit about it. There's these 4 books, and each one is about a brother. And they're finding their wife, and they're defeating the devil, or whatnot. And at the end of it, that's the end. It has a good, solid ending. Sure, there's a few questions, like why the hell the cis-adopted daughter / daughter-in-law person, why she can suddenly command fire. And that's never explained. But that doesn't need to be. Why? Because there's a lot in that series that is purposefully left unexplained. I don't know if they are explained in the Chosen Ones or not, because like I said, I haven't actually read them yet. But it's like in the first book, Anne, she has this tattoo that can judge a person's good or evil. It's like a snake, and if it bites you, you're evil. If it just kind of looks at you, you're a good person. Is it actually mentioned besides the fact that she has it? No. Except it explains why she is the way she is, because people keep wanting to hunt her down and use her for ritualistic suicide, or ritualistic executions and whatnot. But yeah, so that gives it kind of this paranoid, nobody can love me, I'm evil sort of vibe to her. And it's a very reasonable one. I mean, if I had a tattoo like that would just bite people and that caused people to come and try to kill me, which causes people around me to die while they're trying to protect me, yeah, I'd be a little paranoid about that too. And then, in the second book, Honeycutt, Tessa, I think, her parents appear as ghosts, and they help the main character. And then in the third one, I don't think there's really anything too special that happens with that. You know, nothing unexplained in that thing. It's like the last couple chapters of the last book, there's one character can suddenly control fire. That's alright though, because in the second book, we learn that she wasn't really their child anyway. You know, that she was just kind of plopped there. There's these unexplained questions, but it's not a big deal. And so when it jumps forward, I don't know how many years. I think it's something like 10 years. No, wait, more than that. Because Alexander's like 3 or 4 at the end of the first series, and then he's like maybe in his 20s, I think, in the second series. So yeah, whatever. So when they jump forward, it's not so shocking, it's not so jarring, because there actually was a resolution. They did defeat the devil. There was this huge climactic battle. Everybody did survive. The goal was met. And there was no extra thing there. It wasn't like demons were revealed to humanity. It was they destroyed the pact with the devil. The bad guys ended up going to prison. End of story. Right? It's wrapped up very nice, so when they jump forward, it's not so jarring. And then there's Anne Mccaffrey books, you know, the Pern books. Each book takes place, well, unless you count, you know, the Harper Hall books with Melanie, they take place over a course of years. And then each series, or each group of books, they're all interconnected. But then there's another group of books that take place in a different time period, 100 years earlier, 200 years earlier. You know, they're not connected to the first story. And those that are connected, they're done in a very organic way, so that you know what's going on in the other series. Like in the Meneley series, it has, in the Harper Hall, it has Meneley present at Jackson's impression of the White Dragon. And I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it actually has that part, the impression of the White Dragon, in the Dragon Quest, I think it is, the second Dragon Rider book. And then the Master Harper of Pern, it predates the first set of books, but only slightly, like in the course of one lifetime. It starts with this guy's birth, and it goes forward until it interconnects with the next book. Like, the Master Harper is present when Flar kills Fax, I think it is. So that's a very good usage of time. And when something is pre that, like Morita's Ride, it mentions Morita's Ride in the first group of books she wrote, but it doesn't affect it. Like, Morita's Ride is its own separate thing, and you're not expecting it to not be. The parts that aren't its own separate thing are actually written so that you can just grab that group of books and read them all together. Because, you know, it is about time travel, so people go in the past, and they go into the future, and blah, blah, blah. So you kind of have to work with that. But, yeah, that passage of time is very nice. You know? You can skip 200 years, and yeah. So that's a good passage of time. And then there's the Discworld, which is also really good passage of time. You don't know exactly how long each book takes, and each book is its own separate character. And the one that actually moves great lengths forward or back in time, Small Gods, I think, like, takes place 400 years or so before the start of The Color of Magic. You know, so before all that, and you don't even really know it, because the stories are so, I don't want to say disconjointed. One book does affect the future of all the other books, but it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It jumps around in characters. Like, one book is Rincewind, one book is The Witches, the next book is something completely unrelated. And then you have death books thrown in there and a bunch of other things. So it is so completely, has so many different characters and series is going on at the same time, and some books that don't even have main characters of other book series, like moving pictures. Like, who's the main character in that? There's not a series about the main character there, and there's not a series, as far as I know, about the main character of The Truth. But it makes sense. And so it's only later in the book series that you realize that Small Gods takes place several hundred years earlier than the rest of it. But that is a good use of time. And then there's the Derek Landy, the Skulduggery Pleasant books. I made a video on that. Whichever side the card's on, go to that. So, Derek Landy, Skulduggery Pleasant. I love Skulduggery Pleasant. It's witty, it's fun, and there's like 10 books in the series. Plus, a couple novellas and short stories and whatnot. And it goes from this girl who's follows the path of this girl who's 12, and I think she ends up being 20 or something. The last book kind of plays with time a little bit as well. It's 2 stories running at the same time. It's her in present day and her in the past. So you find that she's kind of this, I don't want to do magic. Magic is not good or healthy, and I need to be away from everyone because I'm a bad person. Sort of vibe. And then you have her back when she used magic all the time, and it's why she thinks that she's a bad person, and it's that entire battle and what happened during that, which caused her mindset. So, in one story, you're having the cause of the mindset. In the other story, which is happening at the same time, it's her resolving the mindset. So, that's a good passage of time. Right there. Makes sense. Completes the circle. And then Derek Landy recently announced that he's coming out with a new book for Skulduggery Pleasant, named Resurrection. And it's the main character of which was Valkyrie, and she was now an adult, and Skulduggery, who is still an adult, because he always was an adult. They have a teenage sidekick in it. And it's like, wait, what? So I am really scared on what they're going to do, if it's going to be a good passage of time. Yes, everything was resolved in the previous books. All the main plot threads were wrapped up nice and tightly, so I saw the ones I could tell. Some person out there can probably analyze them and say, oh, hey, this plot here wasn't done right. It needs to be resolved. So yeah, there's probably something that still needs to be resolved, which I haven't noticed. But yeah, for the most part, it's all wrapped up nice and neat. So I want to say it's going to be a good jump in time, but if it's suddenly this guy has been hanging around with them for 3 years, no. How did they meet? That's my question. So I'm worried that it's going to be ruining my favorite series. One of my favorite series, and I'm really hesitant about whether I should read it or not. I'm so totally going to read it, of course. But still, the passage of time oftentimes depict on whether or not I'm going to actually finish a series. Do I want to finish the Black Dagger Brotherhood? Yes, I want to finish it. It's a good series. Am I hesitant about how it ends? And then jumps on to the next set of books? Yes! Because that can ruin the entire thing. Like it ruined the Lara Adrian books. Passages of time are important, both in the individual books, in the series, and when you're trying to subdivide your series into different series. Another good passage of time is the Sherilyn Kenyon books, which the Nut and I have done a video on. So they have a very good passage of time. Each book, like the Harry Potter books, is a year. about. There are some books that all take place at the same time. The first, and this is excluding the Chronicles of Nick, it's just the Dark Hunters and the Were Hunters. The Chronicles of Nick, there's like 3 books that take place in a year, and then like 1 book that takes place in a year, and then, yeah, so they're very erratic in that. But the main Dark Hunter books, they all take place, for the most part, a book a year. There are some books, like I said, which don't take place a book a year. When she does write a book, books that take place over more books in 1 year than, a book a year, she skips a couple years because nothing happens. Or something of the sort. She has a very good passage of time. And I remember hearing somewhere, reading or watching or something, stating that she's going to have second-generation people have their own books, which would be awesome. But we get to watch the characters grow up. So we don't have this huge, well, how did this person go from being this timid 8-year-old to being a badass chick of like 20-something? We have this, the girl's parents get married, have a baby. The baby's born. Then we get to see the child grow up. So we get to answer the questions how she becomes badass, whatever she's going to. We don't know because she's like 10 years old now, 10 or 11. So, yeah, it's going to be a little while. In another 20 years, another 10 years, we'll have a book with her in it. I'm thinking. So, yeah, she has a very good passage of time in those books. When I hear that books take place over a short period of time, instead of a long stretched out period, like the Dark Hunters, but they're compressed in a short period of time, like the Midnight Breed, or even the Black Dagger Brotherhood, which has like 5 books taking place in the same year, I think. Something like that. And then I hear that they jump forward a bunch of years. It makes me very hesitant. Like, what did they skip? Anyway, I am sorry for this horribly long video, but yeah, I just had to get that off my chest, because that's, to me, it's an important thing, and part of the reason why I haven't finished many book series, because I discovered this passage of time, and I'm unsure of whether or not the passage of time is going to ruin it or not. I'm sorry for like this ridiculously long video. My little timer says I've been talking for like 36 minutes. So I'm going to stop it now and see if I can compress it a bit. I also wanted to add that part of the reason why timelines mean a lot to me is because I am working on my own book, and it helped me realize just how important timelines are. So it actually made me think about it, because now I have to consciously decide what to do. It's had me really start thinking about it ever since I started my book, or planning my book. It's going to be a while before it's out, if I ever get it out. This is like the 18th book I've tried to write. But I like to think I'm getting better. Maybe. Possibly. I don't know. Anyway, just had to add that. Bye.